Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Green Factor, where we talk about green design and the business of sustainability. I'm Haris, the Green Carpenter, and today we'll be talking about sustainable opportunities in the Southeast Asia region. With me today, we have Mr. Greenman himself, Matthias Gelber. Hi,
Hi,
Matthias.
hi, hi, hi. Harry, great to be back in. It feels like I'm back in Malaysia, back on the good ground. And yeah, I miss Malaysia a lot. So at least good to talk to a Malaysian audience. And Okila, great.
Great, eh? So
Yes.
before we go into the topic, I would like to hear more, or we would like to hear more on your green journey because previously you live in Malaysia and now you're based in Philippines. So can you share a little bit about your green journey?
Yeah, actually, there is a good moment to share with you guys, was when I was a teenager in a small kampung in Germany, surrounded by the forest, and the forest was really my playground. I mean, not like the iPads, like what the kids have as their playground today. And my late father was asking me, "Hey, son, what's going to be your job in the future that will earn you money?" And I told him, "Dad, my job will be to save the planet." And like, you should have seen the face of my dad. He got the shock of his life, and he was basically saying, "Son, you can't make money from hugging trees." But already at that time, I knew that is kind of my life's mission. I'd read this book, Rachel Carson, A Silent Spring, how pollution was affecting the lives of people and the planet. I was very eco-conscious. We were a post Second World War a generation. Our teachers told us, be a better generation, create a better future, don't make the mistakes of Nazi Germany. And we wanted to change the world. I mean, we had a very strong peace movement in Germany, a very strong green movement. So at that time already, it was clear that's my journey. I studied chemistry, I did a master in environmental science. I was struggling to find a job because people said, "Hey, you haven't got any experience." But then you realize you create your own job, you make your own journey. And after, a couple of years in the industry, if you're hungry, if you're motivated, if you're willing to learn, you can overtake the guys that have been around for 20, 30 years, because they might not be so hungry for learning new things in an aggressive way anymore. So there are huge opportunities in this industry. And I basically started off with environmental management systems, ISO 14001. And the key lesson that I learned there was, if you're on a journey where there is a huge upside, a market uptake, then you have great opportunities. I mean, that was exactly the case. We did consultancy and training. I was riding on a new wave. Suddenly, all sorts of people were calling me up and messaging me, "You have to speak here, you have to speak there." And at the beginning, I thought I was a scientist, but I realized my communication skills is what really can give me the edge of sharing with the world and mobilizing people. So that's what I've been doing in the UK, in Malaysia, now in the Philippines, trying to inspire people to find sweet spots of sustainability opportunities. I mean, there is the compliance part, which is about legal compliance, ESG compliance. That will be one of the mega trends we can talk about later. That's having a real impact and huge opportunities. So we comply, we do the right things, but let's focus on where the real opportunities are, because that's where the money is. That's where we can combine ROI with healing the planet and healing the people. And I think there's never been a better time than today to do all of this and make it happen, because even the financial institutions are supporting us. So in my 14 years in Malaysia, I started a movement called Eco Warriors Malaysia. I was voted greenest person on the planet, but that's very subjective. The person living in the kampung, eating the local makan and not traveling a lot, has a lower carbon footprint than me, who is moving around the world. But I can, during COVID, my footprint was massively reduced. My electricity bill went up at home, especially with the family here. I mean, I still remember the days back in Malaysia where my landlady called me up and said, "Hey, Matthias, what's wrong with you? The Matsala who used to live beforehand in the condo that I was living in Mount Kiara, his electricity bill was 500 ringgit and above. And my landlady was still getting my electricity bill, and mine was average 29, 31, 32. So my landlady, Puan Sri Rowena, was like, "Hey, are you never at home? Are you always traveling?" "No, Rowena, I'm the orang hijau. Don't you remember?" So it's about, advocacy. It's about practicing what you preach, but nobody is perfect. I'm not perfect. There's always scope for improvement. You don't need to be perfect, but the important thing is you are working on continual improvement, which is about reducing our negative impact and, even more exciting, enhancing our positive impact. And that's what we can do through business. Green business, sustainable business, innovation businesses. If we can scale it up, and if we can come up with products or services that are decarbonized, that use raw materials from the circular economy, then we can make a beautiful, positive contribution. We can heal the planet.
Amazing, amazing. And now you're living in Philippines,
Yes.
and you've also seen a lot of opportunities or things that are happening around Southeast Asia. So let's try to look into what other things that have been happening in this region, because there's a lot of talk right now in terms of sustainability, but what are
Yeah.
the actions or things being transcribed in Southeast Asia?
I mean, if I look at where I'm currently heavily involved, which is the Philippine Stock Exchange, I'm the ESG advisor there. Looking at the role of the stock exchanges in the region, the Malaysian Stock Exchange, the Singapore Stock Exchange, the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, Thailand as well, were the early adopters of pushing listed companies to do sustainability reporting and to disclose on their environment, social, and governance. In the past, sustainability was all about environment. But with the UN Sustainable Development Goals and with the formulation of ESG, we're not just focusing on the environmental aspect, we are focusing as well on social. This is about employee wellness, health and safety. It's about gender balance and diversity inclusion. It's about anti-corruption. So there are a lot of other aspects that we are integrating into the wider sustainability definition under ESG, both social and the governance aspect for the listed companies. So that's a mega driver, because the financial institutions, the pension funds, and we even have that in Malaysia, the Malaysian pension fund has already said by 2030, all of their investments need to be ESG compliant. So that's mega. And what does it mean for you as an entrepreneur, as a designer? You are actually going to have more interest from customers. It doesn't necessarily happen automatically, but if you are able to understand what your customer already wants, and a simple tip is go online, Google the company that you target as a customer or have as a customer, Google their ESG report, their sustainability report, and read in there what targets they have already. So this is a gigantic opportunity across all of Southeast Asia, particularly for the listed companies. They have to do it, whether they like it or not. Then we have governments making certain commitments for the Paris Agreement. We have COP26 coming up. We have Singapore already introduced a carbon tax. I think other countries are thinking of appropriate incentives, how we can decarbonize the economy, because nobody wants to be seen to be a laggard in this area. We all need to contribute to it. Obviously, the Western world has historically the highest CO2 emissions, but even developing countries or countries that are already developed or somewhere in between, like Malaysia would be, as defined by the financial institutions like the ADB or the IFC, the World Bank, they see Malaysia already as a, fairly well developed country, not a developing country anymore. And that, by the way, has an impact on how much funding you might get from certain such institutions. But there are commitments, and there are going to be more commitments. I mean, in the Malaysia and the latest financial plan from the government, there was as well a lot of talk about green incentives, circular economy. Circular economy is a mega trend as well, because we are realizing that we cannot just waste resources. Biomass is a great example. Malaysia has huge biomass. I mean, you know, not wanting to go into some of the controversies surrounding palm oil, but fortunately, there are the good guys who do the sustainable palm oil and who don't plant on peatland, which is very problematic. By the way, if you know anyone that's got peatland out there that's already very old in terms of plantation or just being converted, let me know, because my friend from Singapore has got funds to actually turn these peatlands into proper carbon, preserved carbon sequestration areas. This is a mega opportunity. Then we have the whole building materials. People are realizing we cannot decarbonize properly with cement and steel. We need alternatives. There is a big mega project in Singapore, the Nanyang Technical University, 140 million US dollar project. It's a mass timber project. Timber, particularly if it will come from sustainable or recycled resources, will be huge, because that's the only way how you can get a building envelope that is a carbon sink. You cannot achieve that with cement and steel, particularly cement. We are burning limestone, calcium carbonate, a carbon sink. So I think we will see increasingly in the future people shifting away from high carbon products and looking at low carbon products. One of the companies I work with, Avantwood, a Finnish technology, actually can turn plywood waste or small diameter timber that otherwise is only good enough for pulp and paper or for wood pellets into high performance building materials that sequester the carbon in the long term. So these will be some of the mega trends that we can see out there that will provide loads of business opportunities for you guys out there if you have a very entrepreneurial mind, particularly if you look at the biomass. I mean, that mass timber project in Singapore is importing the timber panels from Scandinavia and Austria. No good for the long term. We need to source that kind of material from Malaysia or Indonesia, from underutilized biomass, and instead of turning it into low margin wood pellets, where the carbon dioxide that was sequestered by Mother Nature through photosynthesis will be released again by burning it. That's not really good for the Paris Agreement. So we need to make those shifts, and that will provide loads of opportunities.
You touched a lot about what Malaysia is doing and what some of the opportunities there. But just to give our listeners more context of Southeast Asia, like is there things you're seeing in Thailand or in Philippines itself that can be somewhat like we can refer or learn from as well?
Yeah, I think Thailand has had two advantages. Their renewable energy policy was very aggressive as well with regards to government support long before it even started in Malaysia. So Thailand has been very proactive in that and has become a leader in the region. That obviously then comes with export business opportunities. Plus, Thai companies have always been a little bit open to this idea of circular economy. I don't know whether that comes with the Buddhist way of thinking, but I've realized that 20 years ago, when I started doing training courses in Thailand, that there was a lot of sustainability strategies already in place with big Thai companies. So I think we can learn from that and look at holistic approaches, look at circular economy approaches that have been early adopted by Thai companies. I think here in the Philippines, I see that especially the DTI, Department of Trade and Industry, is trying to support the small businesses, the rural businesses, with environmental innovation, with eco-friendly products, with organic food production, with native products and solutions, bamboo. There is an emerging of a bamboo industry here. There is a big factory that I've seen here in Philippines that is manufacturing bamboo pieces for skyscrapers in the US. So bamboo and wood products will increasingly replace steel and cement. And this again could be something that Malaysia has started looking into this as well. But it seems that for whatever reason, the scaling of that has been happening faster here in the Philippines. So I think it's very important for government to work together, particularly with industry associations, and provide incentives and opportunities. I mean, MIDA is doing that to a certain extent as well in Malaysia, and I know you've benefited from that with some of the overseas activities you did pre-pandemic. So those are some of the things that I see happening here on the ground. On the other hand, as well, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, particularly here in the Philippines. Sometimes the fact that there's a lack of proper enforcement of existing environmental legislation means that certain things don't happen, or there is corruption in the system that prevents things from going into the right direction. It's not the best and most sustainable solution that might win the bid, but some other things influence it. So this is very, very important that we kind of eradicate those things that can prevent sustainability to succeed.
So we have been listening that a lot of in terms of government and policy making are moving towards that, but sometimes it doesn't translate to what's happening on the ground. So what other things, like for me, when I've been doing, because I focus my sustainable my activism towards business people to get them be utilize sustainability, but there's a lot of um, misunderstanding or a lot of things that are not clear to business people or to the people on the ground. Yes, the government wants to go towards carbon neutral or all these big goals, but on the ground and the implementation is something else. So how do we manage that? Because government, they have their own rules and regulation on how they can operate, but how about us the general public can help into that?
Yeah, I mean, we as consumers should try and give preference to those products and solutions that are sustainable. So when you buy a new air conditioning system, if you need an aircon, actually going a step even earlier, if you buy a new condo, and I wrote a book a couple of years ago in Malaysia, where I basically as well gave the recommendation before you buy a condo or move into a condo, go there late afternoon and check how hot and humid is it inside. If your condo that you're buying or that you're renting already is naturally cool because of smart design, passive cooling, then you don't even need to buy an aircon. But if you really need to buy an aircon, buy the inverter aircon, because that will consume a lot less electricity and save you money over the long term. So we as consumers have a role to play. Government procurement has a role to play. Every time we spend money, we should be asking the question, is this healing the planet or is it damaging the planet? So we have a personal responsibility to help with decarbonizing the economy. But as well, business people, we need to be open. We need to look beyond the standard business. I mean, I've been reaching out recently, in particular in Malaysia as well, with people that have plantations, that are in the wood sector. The government has told them focus on higher value products. But I see a lot of inertia. I see a lot of people doing the same thing as they have always done, wanting the easy business. But easy business, you need high volume because you have low margins, because you have a lot of competition. So we need to really give ourselves a kick, get out of our comfort zone and look for innovation potential. Look for real possibilities to be the change and create higher value solutions. Like, I don't have the picture here, but normally my backdrop when I do Zoom is a building, a restaurant in Finland that has been completely made from plywood core waste and small diameter juvenile wood that otherwise would only be good enough for the wood pellets. And you make sikit money with that kind of business. But if you then transform it into high performance, highly durable, like hardwood that we want to keep in the rainforest, but we know, the old hardwood that people used in the kampung house is super durable. If you can create the same experience, the durability, termites have no chance to attack it with low cost material, even waste material, then you suddenly have an entry level of here, but a sales price of there. But to get there, we need to do a lot of homework. We need to do a lot of calculation. We need to do a lot of research. And this is very, very important for business people, for the general public. Don't always look for the easiest option. Go for sikit-sikit, lama-lama jadi bukit. It takes a long time to build up the big mountain. It requires discipline, but that kind of journey of discipline, and you experience that journey as well. You are shifting the direction of the company. You are shifting the direction of the business that was traditionally focusing on selling furniture to government projects and doing some interior. You're diversifying it. You are looking at innovation opportunities. And this must be part of our daily practice, looking for the opportunities, not just getting stuck with business as usual.
Thanks, Matt. I think before we move to the next question, I feel like I want to iterate like this is not a job for one or few people. It's a job of everyone. So we need to have a lot of buying from a lot of stakeholders. We need government support. We need business support. Activists as well. Activists need to support this movement rather than just pushing for something that is against. We have to find ways how we can meet in the middle. We have to have student researchers doing knowledge development here in Southeast Asia, because a lot of the knowledge has been happening in the Western ecosystem. So we need to develop something that is relevant to our climate, our way of thinking and all that. So that is why right now we have a movement. Like in Malaysia, we have Green Design Malaysia, where we have business people, designers, students, and researchers talking about these kind of local issues and sharing stories and research where we develop so that we have a localized content or knowledge that can be used here.
Fully
So
agree.
yeah, what we want to invite more is like more people to be part of the conversation, because there's a lot of issues that surround sustainability in South Asia, even in Malaysia. So we need to have all these people talking about. Maybe one or two people won't get solution, but if let's say 50 people talk about, for example, right now there is issue with face masks. I've always gotten question on what we can do with face mask waste. And for me, my answer currently as well is I'm not the specialist in that, so I can't really answer because I don't have much knowledge. But these are the questions that we need to ask and we need to throw around, so that maybe if we have 50 people talking about it, one or two will get the solution. So this is I'm feeling why the community is important, and why a conversation like this can help with the movement of the sustainability here in Southeast Asia. So I think my next question to you, Matt, is we've been listening a lot on how the manufacturing or product base can help in terms of contributing, like the construction materials and the things that we use and all that. How can we look at from a service business where there is no product? So how can we have that conversation there?
Obviously, consulting and training is going to be big. It's going to be huge. That's how I started my first business. It was a consulting and training company on a wave that was going up, like ISO 14001. The waves that we have at the moment is circular economy, decarbonization, ESG. If you want to become a consultant and trainer, get yourself some practical experience in those subjects and start your own company. Start your own outfit. This is possible, and you don't need much physical equipment. You need a notebook, a good microphone, and the ability to articulate. Now, there's a lot of climate tech coming along, where we expect that fintech, climate tech, prop tech, and sometimes these things overlap. Fintech might be a way to help with a lot of climate solutions, because if you provide financial incentives, or like my bank in Germany, the other day, oh, we can now, through your credit card usage, give you a carbon footprint update of the things that you're buying. So these things are going to merge more and more, and people are spending huge venture capital on particularly climate tech businesses, ESG businesses, that are connected with AI, data predictability. Data is a huge issue. It's a service, but getting the right data for the right goal, like all these ESG rating agencies that are looking at the Bursa listed companies, the Philippine Stock Exchange listed companies. This is a gigantic business now, because all the funds are shifting increasingly to ESG criteria. And at the moment, there are many different people having many different criteria. There will be an increasing convergence of these criteria, because people are complaining that it's too much of a jungle. But those are huge opportunities. At the moment, it's mainly European and North American companies that are playing that game. But Southeast Asia would be a perfect location to service some of those emerging needs from, because there are great IT people here. The cost of operation is lower. And, there are so many opportunities in the service sector that is gigantic.
Thank you. Um, when we talk about sustainability, we are seeing a lot of the conversation have moved towards carbon. So I think in Malaysia we are still getting a hang of sustainability. Now we add carbon in it. So the conversation is a lot different than just sustainability. So I won't touch much, but I would like to for you to just explain on in terms of like when you talk about carbon emission, carbon calculation, and all that, especially carbon calculation, like how, like for example, because you talk about your credit card and all that, that measures that. How can you? What is the understanding behind the carbon calculation and the way they approach this, and how we can make use of those information?
The basic idea behind it is that we have too much carbon dioxide and other gases in the atmosphere that lead to the heating up of the atmosphere, that lead to climate change. And we use the unit of measurement carbon dioxide equivalent. So methane, for example, which is CH4, if you remember from chemistry, has about a 20 times higher impact on global warming per kilogram of methane. So you are turning it into 20 or 22 kilogram of carbon dioxide equivalent. You're coming up with that one measure. All your activities, that is part of a business process if you want to measure your carbon footprint, or you can measure your life carbon footprint. When I printed my book in Malaysia, I measured the carbon footprint of my book based on a Cerium standard. Can you believe it? And we looked at ink, we looked at transportation, where was the paper coming from, the manufacturing process itself, the energy requirement, where did the energy come from? So you're accumulating everything in a holistic way to come up with one unit of measurement. Carbon is increasingly the key indicator, because we have the biggest threat looming over us that might be a bigger risk than COVID. If this earth is going to be heated up more than 2 Celsius and we are on that trajectory, we need to change. That's why carbon and decarbonization is becoming such a big thing.
Amazing, amazing. So guys, whether you're listening live or recording, we have seen based on our conversation that there are changes in policy makings all over
Yes.
Southeast Asia. So the governments are looking into it, and we are seeing now the MNCs and the corporates are moving towards that because they have to comply with the regulation, like the ESG reporting and all that, even in Malaysia. And for me, I'm seeing it as a wave. Right now, we are getting a lot of corporate order, and the conversation is slightly different. And like that's why I touch about carbon calculation. One of our clients, they want us to make a box, around 200 boxes, a corporate client. And when it comes to the logo, we make it using recycled wood, and there's a logo, their logo. So there's two options. One, we could use laser engraving, and the other one is we use UV printing. And then when we tell them this, the options, and then the question is not whether which one is nice. The question was which one have lower carbon emission. So that's why. And then for us, because the laser is being done in-house, so we do it at the place. And if UV print, we have to send it somewhere. So there's transportation costs that involved. So they went with the laser instead, even though
Yeah.
the printing is way nicer in terms of the colors and all that. So
Yeah.
that's why it's interesting to see like how this big company are looking it into this detail, and what will happen within these few years is it's going to trickle down to SMEs and also public.
Big time.
So
Yeah.
now is the time for us to get ourselves prepared for the wave, so that when the time comes, we are ready. We have the option. We don't want to be like in COVID, for example, people who don't go into digitalization, they will be phased out. So
Yeah.
same in within this medium term, whichever company that doesn't comply to sustainability, they will be left behind.
Yeah.
So
If you have a
yes,
high
sir.
carbon footprint in your product or service, you will get less and less customers in the future. I mean, there are big players like Microsoft, Salesforce has already given their contractors clauses, legal clauses that require them to decarbonize. Microsoft made a commitment to net zero, including their supply chain by 2030, not 2050. So they are starting now, and the products, the services they select will increasingly be determined by carbon footprint, not just by price alone. So this is real, and this is a big opportunity. Or if you don't move, it's going to be a threat to your business.
So that's why I would like to invite again for listeners. If you find that the content that we make here is beneficial to going to be beneficial to your friends or your family, do share them this recording, and at the same time be part of the conversation. Like in Green Design Malaysia, this is a Facebook community book. Be part of it. Be part of the conversation. Ask questions and help us in terms of bringing Malaysia towards a sustainable future. And for everyone that is tuning in live, thank you for tuning in. And for everyone else, thank you and have a green week ahead. Bye.
See you soon, guys. Bye.